In a remote corner of the central Pacific Ocean, lying along the equator, is a group of widely scattered islands which make up the Republic of Kiribati. A small island developing state in the middle of the Pacific, Kiribati is a cluster of 33 atolls with a total land area of 800 square kilometers. Much of the main atoll, Tarawa, is barely half a kilometer wide and lies just 3 meters above sea level. A tropical paradise now harboring the effects of climate change. Like its Pacific neighbors, the Republic of Kiribati is known to be one of the most vulnerable countries to the adverse impacts of climate change. South Tarawa's high population density, socio-economic conditions, along with the limited land area and low-lying land levels, leave it particularly susceptible to the impacts of periodic coastal flooding and coastal erosion. Population growth and the availability of resources remain at the forefront of many of the challenges of development faced by those who live here. And climate change adds to the burden this atoll nation faces today.
Dia tasa di Cino batera orang aja kan samon dan lah saya was samon rota gay di karena di matu ade yakagin di jabusin tarian maka karena stay kan ya tari stomai saya kan saya warung maka jadi orang kora-kora jabusin nara tahu.
Addressing climate change and climate variability in Kiribati and finding ways of effectively adapting to their impacts is a major task involving all sectors of society. In August 2012, a climate change media training workshop was conducted on South Tarawa, attracting participants from government, non-governmental organizations and the mainstream media. The workshop provided a platform to discuss, learn and share good practices about climate change and its effects and the role of participants in climate change awareness, education, communication and public access to information. This initiative is part of the efforts of the European Union-funded Global Climate Change Alliance Pacific Small Island States project, which is being implemented in 9 Pacific Small Island states, including Kiribati.
What we're basically doing is trying to support the environmental health monitoring capability. They've got some good people who are able to do the testing, but it's a least developed country here. They're simply not able to afford the reagents, the chemicals on a regular basis, or the transport to go out and collect all the information about where the mosquitoes are breeding and where the water is contaminated. And then it's another step as well to communicate that to the communities. So by the end of the next couple of years that our project's being implemented over, we're really hoping that that starts to be seen.
These atolls are the home of over 100,000 Kiribati people. The capital, South Tarawa, has a population density of around 3,200 people per square kilometer, and the population is still growing. This is one of the highest population densities in the world.
According to the 2010 population census, we have counted more than 100,000. In fact, it's about 103,000 people in Kiribati. South Tarawa is about 50% of that number. So that's an increase in the influx of people from outer islands to the capital, the urban area.
The issues of population pressure, population density, overcrowding all correlate with poor health outcomes and vulnerability to climate change in Kiribati. As you're aware, some of the very densely populated areas of South Tarawa Atoll here, like Bairiki and Beso, have among the worst health indicators in the country, and it's no accident that these particular subsectors of the population are also those most vulnerable to climate-sensitive health risks like diarrheal disease, for example.
Kiribati's population is growing quickly and is expected to double by 2025. The population growth rate is 2.2% per annum. Rapid urban population growth in South Tarawa has put enormous pressure on the environment and led to significant public health issues. With climate change, the challenges for Kiribati are exacerbated.
From our estimate, I think we should have now, I think the population of the urban area should have exceeded the total population of the rural island, the rural area. So I think there are now more than 50% staying in the urban area than the rural area.
But when it comes to climate change, the concern is that issues like sea level rise, loss of land and livelihoods, population displacement, compromised food security and fisheries will cause populations or subsectors of the population to move, potentially relocate, and perhaps exacerbate this problem of urbanisation and overcrowding in areas like South Tarawa. So we see climate change as being an additional driver or forcer of determinants of health or health risk, and the primary area of concern is going to be areas like South Tarawa.
With the changing weather patterns aggravating public health problems in Tarawa, the incidence of diarrheal disease, malnutrition and vector-borne disease such as dengue fever is likely to rise as a result of increased temperatures and changes in rainfall. Infant mortality from diarrheal diseases in Kiribati is also one of the highest in the Pacific.
The challenges are we have a highest population growth, fast growing population, and also we have a very young population. So if you put that together, you expect that there will be a high child under 5 mortality rate, and also we'll have a lot of problems in pregnancy because there's a lot of deliveries going on, considering the fact that the population growth is very high.
Here in Kiribati, the key climate-sensitive health risks that were identified as part of the 2-year project that I mentioned were vector-borne diseases, that is, diseases spread by primarily mosquitoes, which here in Kiribati refers mainly to dengue fever. Waterborne diseases, diseases related to contamination of water or scarcity of water that mainly lead to diarrheal disease. Foodborne diseases, similarly, carry a risk of diarrheal illness, and issues related to disease surveillance, because climate change for the most part will act more as a multiplier or amplifier of current health issues rather than bringing new issues. So in that sense, surveillance or monitoring for disease activity is one of the most important adaptation measures that a country, including Kiribati, can do in the context of climate change.
The thing that we need to work at in Kiribati is for people to have a common mind, a common goal to ensure that water is critical.
Many villagers have little or no understanding of climate change, but they say they know they are witnessing higher seas, as well as stronger and less predictable winds and more intense heat. Villagers with seawater lapping at their feet have been forced to abandon their homes, sometimes more than once. The highest tide, which occurs once or twice every year, is known as king tide in Kiribati and many other Pacific islands. In Tarawa, many homes are flooded during king tides, and locals are forced to take things into their own hands. Bob Teoram from the island of Arare has lived on the water's edge in Temwaiku, the northernmost tip of South Tarawa, for more than 12 years after relocating twice. Even then, he has no peace as he continually rebuilds the seawall to protect his family. He also had to rebuild his house on makeshift stilts, but the rising water has made him think twice about living on this island he calls home.
I think that's where we are trying our best to invest in the people themselves, because we can't stop overcrowding. People will continue to come to the capital island because this is where most of the education, good education, hospital, medical care, they also looking for employment opportunities. But us at the Environment Division, I think it's our role to invest in the people themselves, raising their awareness on the importance of why the waste and pollution is a big problem and how they can work together with the community, with the government to address the problems, as well as also getting them to aware what are the global climate change impacts and what would happen if we continue to generate waste and pollution in the countries.
Activities are underway to address overcrowding in urban areas and associated public health and environmental problems. With the Kiribati adaptation program into its third phase, with priority being given to activities in the areas of freshwater supply and coastal protection.
For us, it's to continually engage the communities, raise their awareness, as well as getting them to involve in the various programs that we are doing at the government level, with our hope that when they participate, they will also realize that there are things that they need not to do, and there are things that they may do to assist to improve their livelihoods, the health of the environment they are living in.
Kiribati is at the front line of climate change. Unless action is taken, the future of Kiribati is at stake. This tiny island nation faces a daunting range of environmental challenges, and many of these are exacerbated not only by climate change and climate variability, but also by other development changes, such as population density, health problems, and unsustainable human practices. The time to act is now. Responding to climate change is everyone's responsibility.